Cariad, I am taking this charity bag swag and turning it into these. Let me show you how. So these jeans have got a little bit of elastic and just short capri. I don't know. You probably notice fashion isn't my strong point, but we're not doing fashion, we're doing creativity. Now this pair of jeans, my charity bag swag, will gloss over the fact they came out of a bag that was going to the charity shop. My mum asked me to drop it off and I intercepted. This is a family affair, this. Now, before I start, because I'm going to cut all the way along behind the side seam, I'm just going to put a holding stitch. So I'm going to do a row of straight stitching just behind the waistband where the elastic starts. And I'll do that on both sides. And then I'll cut it open without any of that elastic going and creating more work to do. So the stitch on the waistband is done, the elastic is in place. I'm now going to cut both sides just behind the side seam all the way up and through, and I'm going to guesstimate this, but just, I've got no idea how far that is, half an inch, quarter of an inch. Maths numbers aren't my strong point, and I'm normally a real perfectionist, and I would measure, get scared and not cut, but this is a whole new adventure. And when I get to the top, I'm just going to bring it inside that row of stitches that I did. There we go, and same on the other side. Both sides are now cut open. Two halves make a whole. We've still got the attachment in the middle. I'm going to lay these out, back side up, and just move the excess out the way and just flatten it through. And I'm just going to start decorating. I've got this bright zebra fabric, but it has got a bit of a stretch, which I don't particularly want, particularly when I'm sewing it. So I'm going to put some iron-on interfacing, but I'm going to cut through first just to see how much I need. So I'm going to run this from just below the waistband. There is a loophole, but we'll just go over that. And I do want to keep the pockets. So I'm just going to roughly measure, roughly will be the order of the day, how big I want this to be. And then just chop away. There's the top of the waistband. We'll just cut straight across. Just kind of got a smaller bit to work with, and then again we'll go up the sides. Head to the ironing board, iron interfacing on the back, and then we'll come back and make it fit a little bit better. So with the interfacing, there's a bit of a shiny, if you get the light right, side. That's the glue side, so that goes face down onto the back of the fabric. So lay the fabric out flat, put the interfacing on top with that glue side down, and then I just use a piece of cotton and just hold a hot iron just over it, just for about 30 seconds to melt the glue, make it stick, and then move along and do the next bit. And just keep doing that till the whole fabric is covered. So the interfacing is now ironed on. I'm just going to place it over the back of the jeans, and I just want to mark along the top of the waistband and also around the pocket. And I'm just going to keep this one pocket. And then I want to finish it a little bit lower on one side than the other. That was possibly a really bad explanation, but all will make sense. So lay it over the top and either use chalk or a pen. I'm going to use a pen just because it's quite bright fabric. So then just mark underneath that waistband. And there are belt buckles, not belt buckles at all, that's so the wrong word. Loopholes for the belt buckles. So I'll just skip those out. And it's just to give you that marker really where I want to cut it to. I might have just gone completely offline there. So just feeling your way through. And then the same on the pocket. And then I'm gonna bring it down. So just, I've got this center seam here, so the back of the center. I'm gonna bring it round there on one side, just because I can, because there's no rules with this. So drawing that through, and then I'll bring it lower on the other side. So it's about there. And there we go. And then I'm just going to draw a straight line with the ruler from where I've marked there underneath, just so there is a little bit of conformity. And then I'll just trim all that round. So there we go, that's all trimmed. And then I just want to, where I've marked the pocket, because I don't want, because I did say I was a bit of a perfectionist. I'm just going to cut in through the centre there and around the edge of that pocket. But I'm not going to cut across the top. So I'm hoping that when I lay it out, that will tuck in, and I will cut the excess off, but just so I get a nice clean finish. Might need a little bit of tweaking, but there we go. So that's all going to fit around there. I'm going to pin that on, and then I'm going to sew it just around the edge, as close to the edge as I can, just with a straight stitch, just around every little bit, so that's then fully attached. There we go, that is all stitched all the way around. I did cut this a little bit higher than I first anticipated, but I've done both pockets, and I'm just going to cut across there just to leave a couple of inches. Again, we know that measurements aren't my thing. I'm going to tuck the excess in and then just do a row of straight stitch across the top just to secure it in place, and then that is the base, or the main bit of the back done. I am very aware that when I sew, the tripod shakes, so I'm probably making you a bit seasick, so I do apologise, but it is what it is. So now the back bit's done, I'm going to recreate this same pattern on the front, but I'm going to do it in two separate pieces. And again, I'm going to go around the pockets and around the fly as well. So because I went for a bit of a staggered look, so this side being shorter than this side, I'm going to have to do a bit of measuring. I have to do like measure twice now. Measure twice, cut once. That's what my grandma used to say. So same thing, I'm going to use the same fabric, and I'm going to back it with the iron interfacing, and then I'm going to cut it, mark around the areas, and then two separate pieces go on. That's probably the most fiddliest bit done, because I've cut around the pockets, but there's two separate patches there with the iron interface on the back, like the back had. And I've just pinned her all the way around, and I'm going to sew that like the back, straight stitch all the way around, staying close to the edge on both pieces, and then we'll add a little bit more patchwork. So the front and the back are now sewn, and I'm going to add on some patches. So I do love a bit of check. So I've got some old shirts, some that have already been slightly... Anyway, we'll gloss over that. There's still plenty. So I'm going to use the check, and I'm just going to make some little patches, which I'm going to put into rows across the front, and then I'll repeat that on the back as well. I've cut some patches from those shirts and just pinned them randomly, a little bit of overlapping, and I'm going to just sew around each one just with a straight stitch close to the edge. Now they're not finished, so there will be some fraying when these get washed, finished and washed, but that's just going to add. It's just going to add to the final decoration. So I'm going to go back to the sewing machine, sew all these on, and I've put them on the back as well, only on one side of the leg, but a little bit over the pocket, and then just that little collection again, just for that little follow through. So I'll go and sew these on. All the patches are sewn on now, front and back. So I'm going to put the jeans back together, ready for the next stage. Now I'm going to sew back down the line I cut, but I'm going to keep wrong sides together, so there will be a raw edge all the way through, which will fray over time, just to give it that little distressed look. And when I sew it, I'm going to start at the top and go down the leg, because although these jeans started off the same length all the way around, there's always that danger that they will shift slightly as you sew, and I'd rather have a difference at the bottom that I can trim rather than at the top. So I'm going to start at the top, sew all the way down, and then I'll do a second row of stitching just to reinforce it. Do that on both sides, and then we are coming into the final stages. Side seams are now sewn up. I've done a double row of stitching just to reinforce it. Everything is now secure back together as a pair of jeans. And now I'm going to crop them. So I guess these were 3/4 length to start, maybe a bit longer than that. I've done the very, very accurate measurement of just hold them against me and put a pin with where I want them to be. I'm going to cut a little bit lower than that because they're going to have a turn up. And then I'm going to add a final bit of decoration, which is the very exciting bit. So I will measure just to make sure it is even. I'll cut double, so again, they stay even if the measurement is out. And then I will do the turn up. I'll just press the turn up so that I can add on that final bit. So I've cropped and turned up and just pressed the turn up. So they are about ready to go. And then I've got this tablecloth and it's got this really lovely lace trim and it's got a straight line to follow the cut. And I'm going to cut along, so I've got a whole length, which I'm then going to make into a ruffled ruffle. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a bit of a ruffle hanging down underneath the turn up. So it's going to have this little almost bloomer effect. Let's go back that far. Little bloomer effect just with the lace hanging down. So I've got no idea how big this is, but I just know it's the perfect size. So I'm going to cut along that whole length. Again, this is where a table will probably be useful. So cut along the whole length, each end, and then I'm going to use one per leg. And I'll show you how I'm going to pleat it to give it that subtle ruffle look. So there we go, I've got the two lengths with the lace trim. I'm going to turn the jeans inside out. And this is just going to be an absolute guesstimate job. I mean, I'm sure you're not surprised by that now, are you? But one per leg. So I'm going to start on the inside and just overlap where the lace is. And I'm going to bring it up to the second line. Now this just helps massively. This couldn't be better really. So it's got a second line there of decoration, which I'm going to use as my guide. So I'm going to go to the corner, to the inside seam, and just put a pin there. And I'm going to take it all the way around and underneath, and the same thing the other side, and line that up. So line it up with the line and with the seam of the jean, and with a bit of lock. If I do this properly, I'll put that upside down. I'll do that again. So underneath, wonder why it wouldn't work, and then round you go all the way through to the seam. That line at the bottom of the turn up, and pop a pin in there. So that's just the start and end point planned, and then I've got this excess here. So I'm going to find the opposite half of the turn up, which is where the other seam is, and the halfway point of the tablecloth. I'll refer to it as a tablecloth because that's what it is at the end of the day, and that's about there. So again, that line goes to the point, and we'll pop a pin in there. And then same thing, the halfway point of the two seams, so quarter fold it, there's the point, the halfway point of the tablecloth comes up through to that line, and again it's just a bit of a rough guesstimation really, but I'm confident this will work. And then just keep going with each point. So find the half point of the quarter, half point of the cloth, half point of the cloth, which is about there and about there, and pop a pin in, and again halfway, line it up with the bottom of the turn up and pop a pin in. I'm just going to keep doing that until it gets smaller and smaller until I've got a pleat. So when there's just one fold there, I'll pin that. It's perhaps a bit far away, isn't it? And then again, that halfway point of the seam, just going to fold it up, turn it over, and there's the pleat. And all the pleats will go the same way. So I'll keep doing that all the way round, and then take it to the sewing machine. Just pin that from behind. That wasn't helpful. There we go. Real life upcycling. So we're going to do it all the way round until I've got these little pleats pinned from corner to corner, and then take it back to the machine and just take a straight stitch all the way round. Now that is also going to attach the turn up. It's going to keep the turn up secure as well. Now I'm using white thread, which will give it a bit of decorative. I guess ideally I should use blue so it blends in, but I'm not going to change the machine thread now. So I'll keep going with that, take it back to the machine, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. So I've pinned the former tablecloth, now ruffle, all pleated, all the pins are pleated, all the pleats are pinned even. I'm going to take the front of the machine off and just do a straight stitch line all the way close to the top, which will also then catch the turn up on the opposite side that I made. So as that starts to wear and distress down, the fray will only go to the stitch line. So I'm going to start just after the fold, not the fold at all, the overlap of the cloth. Feed that through. And there we have charity bag swag transformed. We've got the patchwork, we've got the lace effect, frilly bloomer bottom. You wouldn't recognise them, would you? So from the intercepted charity bag, we have our transformation.